This one might be a little controversial, as we start off by briefly discussing a new law in Canada that forbids the preaching of certain sections from the Bible, which the Watchtower doesn't seem to care about. And then from there, we talk about abortion, which the Watchtower also doesn't seem to care about. Her answers regarding both of those were pretty shocking to me. Now, I realize there may be some heated discussion in the comments for this one because these are controversial topics, and that's fine, but please just keep it respectful. Most of you probably know that as a Christian, I believe in freedom, and particularly when it comes to preaching the full Word of God, and I am very openly pro-life. My JW friend also briefly brought up the United Nations. Yes, I could have pointed out that the Watchtower was a United Nations NGO or non-governmental organization for nearly 10 years, but I skipped it this time. I have brought it up before with her, so she is aware, though she chooses to consider it fake news and won't look into it for herself, sadly.
But, gosh, when you look around, things are really, really in a turmoil. Like, I was reading an article where the Secretary General of the United Nations, he had recently made a statement, and he was saying that the whole world is in turmoil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you hear about Bill C-4 in Canada?
Pardon me?
Did you hear about Bill C-4?
Have I heard about
the latest bill that was passed by Parliament?
Oh, in Canada, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, which one do you mean?
Bill C-4. It's
Oh, C-4.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I know the phone, it can be hard to hear that. Yeah, so basically it's a law now that you can't preach certain parts of the Bible, and you can't help people who have embraced, like transgender lifestyle. If they want out of that, you can't help them or you'll go to jail.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's governments, and of course,
yep.
We as Jehovah's Witnesses don't worry about what governments do. We're not fighting governments. If the government passes law, that's beyond us. Because if it's the same as like an abortion bill. Like there was people protesting and fighting to not to have that abortion bill passed, and yet you wouldn't see a Jehovah's Witness in there, because that's like we take that as seriously as fighting against the government. And of course the Bible says also that governments are placed there in their relative position by God, so we shouldn't be opposing them.
So, okay. So are you
yet individually, we can make the decision ourselves not to whether you want to have an abortion or not, and that is nothing. The government. That's up to the individual and between them and God.
So is the Watchtower pro-choice then?
Pardon me?
Is the Watchtower pro-choice?
It's pro-choice. It's not pro-choice. It's not pro-choice. Life is sacred, and we believe life is sacred, and
okay.
We don't have the right to destroy it.
Right. So
but,
then abortion is murder.
To make that a law.
So, but abortion is murder, and you guys are okay with that happening and people having the choice to murder?
Well, we don't change governments because we can change hearts. You see, that was another statement that's an interesting statement that another leading politician said, a historian. He was saying that both the League of Nations and the United Nations have failed, and the United Nations is still failing because of the fact that it can make laws, but it can't change hearts. And
so
making laws does not do the trick. You have to educate people to change their minds.
So if you see a government official killing people, you just say, well, that's the government, and don't worry about it?
That's
Like,
beyond our control.
so you wouldn't
There's
ever
people
stand up for
killing
this?
each other down through the centuries.
What about babies, though? Like, you wouldn't want to protect the babies?
You can't change. You can't take the woman's right away if that's her prerogative. She has the right to make a wrong choice.
She has the right to murder a baby.
So she has made
God
the wrong choice.
Did God give her the right?
You can't stop her.
Did God give her the right to murder her baby?
God will hold her accountable.
Right.
But that's not our responsibility.
So as long as the government says it's okay, then we don't worry about it?
Our hands are tied about it because
why not stand up and say something? Why not try to protect the babies?
What our method is, we go to people and try to educate them about God's love for all mankind and that life is precious.
Mm.
And if everybody got united on that same page, then people would see that and obey that. It would be a law written on their heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that would have to be a miraculous work of God to make that happen, wouldn't it?
But God has promised that on his holy mountain in Isaiah, he had promised that the law would be written on their hearts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on his people's hearts.
And we, as Jehovah's Witnesses, try to do that. The laws that we obey are written on our hearts. They're not written in a book.
Mm.
And that's why we go from door to door. We try to, we try to turn people to God and obey his laws.
Mm. But just by mostly letter writing now, I guess?
Yeah, letter writing and telephoning and talking to our neighbors and things like that. And family members that don't believe.
This is a personal question. You don't have to answer, but I was curious. How many people have you convinced to join the organization? Have you found a lot have come over the years? Like you personally?
Yes, there's lots. Personally, trying to convince somebody is not just a one-person thing. Sometimes it takes years, and sometimes it takes a lot of people. One person will, and of course, Jesus, Paul talked about that too. He says, one water, another.
One plants, another waters.
One plants a seed, another waters, but God makes it grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's at Corinthians.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it takes, it's not one individual that ever really convinces a person.
Mm. So you haven't had
very rarely.
So you haven't had a study with somebody and then they decided to join the organization.
Usually a study starts with, people are very transient, so one person will start a study and then that person maybe then moves, so then they get kind of lost for a while and they get reintroduced again in another area and start again and so forth. And then some, of course, study, and of course they say it sounds good, but then they haven't really looked at because everything has a price to pay, and then they don't want to change their lifestyle, and then that becomes a stumbling block. And of course Jesus warned about that too.
A couple of things. Earlier, she accidentally brought up their proud claim about going door to door. I found that a bit funny since they don't do that anymore, and it's still very up in the air as to whether they will ever do it again. I know I could have jumped on that, but I decided not to get too argumentative at that point. Second, Her long, drawn-out answer to my question seems to suggest that she has never successfully convinced anyone to join the organization. I would imagine that anyone who has done it successfully would be pretty proud and willing to share about it. And my friend is such a hardcore Watchtower worshiper that I have to admit I was expecting her to say yes to my question and give some vague examples of people who joined because of her instruction. But I guess not. Maybe that's why she keeps calling me. Perhaps because I'm so willing to keep talking, that gives her some kind of hope that maybe she will be able to get me to join one day. How well do you think she's doing with that? So it just sounds like a lot of work, and then not much.
That is our focus, because Jesus talked about seek first the kingdom, and look at Paul. That's what he did. He spent his life once he knew what he should be doing. He spent his life.
Yeah.
And all of them, they were, those early Christians, they were martyrs.
Yeah, because God gave them a new heart, and then they lived for Him in thankfulness to Him, right?
So it's the same today, and Jesus said that this good news of the kingdom will be preached right to the end.
Mm-hmm, and so it will, yeah.
What those early Christians experienced is still being experienced in different countries.
Yeah, yeah. So you're trying to earn it, though, like you're trying to earn your way.
No, that's not an earning. No.
Oh, okay.
But although Paul did tell Timothy, he said to continue with his learning, because he could save himself and others too.
Interesting.
Because when we preach to others and teach others, then that reinforces that truth within ourselves. We can then see very, very plainly that this is the Bible truth, and it just reinforces that in us and makes us more sure of the promises that God has of making the earth a paradise like He originally planned. Because in Isaiah 55, in verse 11, there it says his word that he compare in verse 10. He compares the cycle of rain and precipitation. And so he says, and so my word that goes forth will not return without success. And at Genesis, when he completed his works, he said it was very good. Not only good, but very good.
That's true, because it's God. Yeah.
So it's a promise that he's going to fulfill. And although Satan has lied about what God's plan was, he's going to make it come true. Because remember when Satan said to Eve, he said that God is lying to you. He knows. Once you eat that fruit, you're going to be like God. You won't need God. So that lie is still continuing to this day.
Sure. Yep.
It's been interesting talking to you. I hope maybe I just maybe could try to maybe for you to see the pattern of thinking that I'm following, and hopefully that it makes sense to you.
Yeah, I think you're. We've talked enough that I think you've been pretty clear that you do seem to, like, from my memory, the conversation tends to go back to Paradise Earth pretty much, I think, almost every time we talk. So that's your hope.
Because that's basically where we can go, where we can start from.
Right. So it's aware. It's not
like the Bible. Actually, that's what the Bible is. If you read from Genesis right to Revelation, it's explaining how that kingdom is going to come about
Have you
why it needs to come about.
have you ever yourself read all the way through from Genesis to Revelation, like on your own without reading anybody else's commentary on it?